everyone. Welcome to the venues. We hope you've had a very Merry Christmas, and we're glad that you could join us this morning. My name is Jody Meadows, and I'm an associate pastor here. I just want to tell you a few things about what's going on that you might like to become involved in. If you are interested in a way to deepen your relationship with the venues and know more about what we're doing and make connections with others, you might consider signing up for our orientation series. We have on January the 9th, our next level class, and that is a way to just meet the staff and find out about the programming that's happening at the venues. And if you want to go further, we have a venues values class that is starting on January the 16th, and that'll be a 4-week class where you can have conversations with staff and fellow travelers here about the values of the venues and how those connect to your own life. Also, we have, starting on February the 13th, an 8-week small group called Faith Shift. Many people that come to the venues are in a developmental process with their faith where some of their faith may be changing. And if you'd like to discuss that in an intimate small group environment around a text that kind of helps us talk about that, we'd love to have you there. You can sign up for all of those things on our website. Also, if you need a midweek boost, you can always come down to 425 West Walnut Street on Thursday night. And our next meeting for that will be January the 6th, and it's our all-music night, and the Meadows Family Band will be playing there that night. So we're very excited about that, and we hope you can join us. There's so many ways you can connect to us. If you are new to the venues and you would like us to have your information, you can go online and fill out an online welcome card at thevenues.org. You can submit prayer requests. You can follow us on social media. And of course, if you like what we're doing at the venues, you can give financially. You can do that online and in person when we see you here next time. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Just as I am, you welcome me. With open arms, how can this be? My guilt is undone, my past is untethered. I leave it behind and run to my Father. There is no disappointment in your eyes. There is no shame, there is only pride. I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. So unreserved your heart for me. My fear is gone, I am set free. There's nothing to hide, there's nothing to measure. 'Cause I am your child, and that's all that matters. There is no disappointment in your eyes. There is no shame, there is only pride. I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. There is no distance in your embrace. Over and over again you say, receive it. You are changing everything. You are changing everything. You are changing everything. I believe it, I receive it. You are changing everything. There is no disappointment in your eyes. There is no shame, there is only pride. I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. There is no distance in your embrace. Over and over again you say, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. Oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. Oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you. Oh, I am loved, Father, I'm loved by you.
You'll find me with the broken and the weak, in the spaces in between. You'll hear my voice cry out with those who weep, only if you're listening. Whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me. You'll find me with the ones without a voice, the forgotten and ignored. My blessing is on those who love the poor. Will you open up the door? Whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me. Whatever you do for the least of these, you do it unto me. Hallelujah, hallelujah. He is among us. He is among us. Hallelujah, hallelujah. He is among us. He is among us. Hallelujah, hallelujah. He is among us. He is among us. Hallelujah, hallelujah. He is among us. He is among us. By this the world will know the Father's love we will know the Father's love.
Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you guys have had some great time with your family the last couple of days. And just like today is the day after Christmas, I have a story to tell you about the wise men. And that's what Pastor Philip is going to talk about. And the wise men are also called the Magi. Today, our story comes from Matthew 2. Far away in the east, 3 clever men saw the very same star, the star that God had put in the sky when Jesus was born. They knew it was a sign. A baby king had been born. They had been waiting for this star. They knew it would come. "He's here," they shouted. "He's here." And I'm sure if you had been there, you would have heard them laughing and dancing and singing until the sun came up. At dawn, they packed their camels and wrapped their gifts for the baby. They brought their most precious treasures of all, frankincense, gold, and myrrh. The 3 wise men, actually, if you would have met them, you would have thought they were kings because they were so rich and clever and important looking. They set off. They rode their camels across endless deserts, up steep mountains, down into deep valleys, and through raging rivers over grassy plains. Night and day and night, for hours that turned into days, that turned into weeks, that turned into months, and months that lasted until they reached Jerusalem. Jerusalem was by far the most important city for miles around. And as anyone can tell you, that's where a palace would be, and kings were born in palaces. So that's where they went. They were in for a surprise, though. They went to see King Herod. Surely he'd know where the baby was. But he didn't. In fact, King Herod was very upset to hear that there was a baby king. He didn't want anyone to be king except himself. But Herod's advisors told the 3 wise men what was written in their books, what God had said about the baby king. "Go to Bethlehem. That's where you'll find him." Suddenly, the star they had seen in the east started moving again. The 3 wise men followed the star out of the big city along the road into a little town of Bethlehem. They followed the star through the streets of Bethlehem, out of the nice part of town, through the not so nice part of town, and into a really not so nice part of town, down a tiny dirt track until it stopped right over a tiny house. But wait, this wasn't a palace. There weren't any guards. There weren't any servants or trumpets or anything. Did they get it wrong? But sure enough, in that little house, there, sitting on his mother's knee, they found him, the baby king. The 3 men knelt before the little king. They took off their rich royal turbans, gleaming gold crowns. They bowed their noble heads to the ground and gave him their sparkling treasures. The journey they had begun so many centuries before that led the 3 wise men there to a little town, to a little house, to a little child. To the king God had promised, David, all those years before. But the child was a new kind of king. Though he was the Prince of Heaven, he had become poor. Though he was the mighty God, he had become a helpless baby. This king hadn't come to be the boss. He had come to be the servant.
Well, between today, December 26th, and next week, we're going to be thinking about time. We're going to say goodbye to the old year and hello to the new year. The song the band is going to do, one of my favorite Christmas songs, is about time. It says, "Christmas time is here." And in that song, we are encouraged to, and there's a desire created within us, not to close the book on the spirit of Christmas, but to carry that throughout the year. So enjoy that, meditate on that as the band sings.
Christmas time is here, happiness and cheer, fun for all the children call their favorite time of year. snowflakes in the air, carols everywhere, olden times and ancient rhymes of love and dreams to share, sleigh bells in the air, beauty everywhere, Yuletide by the fireside, and joyful memories there. Christmas time is here, we'll be drawing near. Oh, that we would always see such spirit through the year. Sleigh bells in the air, beauty everywhere, Yuletide by the fireside, and joyful memories there. Christmas time is here, we'll be drawing near. Oh, such spirit through the year.
Well, merry day after Christmas. Today is December the 26th. Yesterday was a big day, I'm sure, for everybody. So how do you feel today on December 26th after December 25? Are you like Buddy? It's only 364 more days until Christmas. We love Christmas so much. Or are you more like Lucy? Lucy is having her post-Christmas letdown. She says, rats. Phooey, everything is hopeless. What's the use? Rats, nobody cares, phooey. And Charlie Brown asked her, what in the world is the matter with you? And she says, I'm having my regular post-Christmas letdown. So are we going to be like Buddy? Can't wait till next year? Or are we kind of depressed and sad like Lucy? Well, here's who I want to be like, the three kings. The scripture calls these guys the Magi. We call them the three kings probably because of that song that was made so many years ago that we sang when we were kids in church. The three Magi, or the three kings. Now, every nativity set has three kings. And maybe there were three kings, but maybe not. The scripture doesn't say that there were three people. The scripture only says that there were three presents. So there may have only been two, there may have been as many as six. We just don't know. Here's another factoid that might burst your Christmas bubble. Every nativity set has the three kings or the three Magi grouped together with the shepherds and the oxen, the camel, the sheep, and of course Mary in her blue dress and Joseph, and of course baby Jesus. But scholars tell us that it's just almost absolute that the wise men were not there at that first event, that they weren't there with the shepherds. They were late arrivals to the party, kind of like what we are today. This is the day after the big event. And the wise men, the Magi, arrived after the main event. So, what we need to do is try to understand how we're going to respond after the main event. Like Buddy, like Lucy, or like the wise men. So many times I feel like Lucy on the day after Christmas with my post-Christmas letdown. And she and Shermie are walking. I think that is Schroeder. She and Schroeder are walking along, and she says, "What's a sure cure for post-Christmas letdown?" And Schroeder says, "To pat a puppy on the head." And there's Snoopy getting the pat on the head. And Snoopy asks, and how do I cure my post-Christmas letdown? So if we don't have a puppy to pat, what do we do to cure that post-Christmas letdown? What can I do, if anything, that would help me to be merry and bright all throughout the year, not just the Christmas season? Remember the song that the band sang a moment ago with those really powerful lyrics. Christmas time is here, families drawing near. Oh, that we could always see such spirit through the year. So how can we maintain this spirit throughout the year? Spirit of peace on earth and goodwill to all people. Well, the lesson of the wise men helps me answer that question. The first thing they tell me is that I can see spirituality all around me. I don't have to look anywhere in particular to find God. I don't have to go somewhere to find God. I don't have to go to Battlefield Venue or Downtown Venue to find God. I can find God in the stars. I can find God in nature. Moses in the Hebrew Scripture found God in a burning bush. The presence of God in all things is a truth that we find throughout Scripture. In the Hebrew Scripture, the book of Job, chapter 32 and verse 8, the speaker says, "But there is a spirit within people." And really in the Hebrew language, that word "a" before spirit is not in there. So it's really, but there is spirit within people, the breath of the Almighty within them that makes them intelligent. So the spirit that is in all people is the very breath of God. And that gives us understanding. That's a better translation of that Hebrew word for intelligent. It gives us wisdom. That spirit does. So the presence of God is in everybody. The spirit of God, the breath of God is in everybody. And Paul says a similar thing when he's in Athens talking to some philosophers. And the philosophers were asking, well, how can I find God? And Paul basically says, you don't have to look very far. God's really close. And Luke records in Acts 17:28, Paul saying this, "For in him, in God, we live and move and have our being, as even some of your own poets have said, for we too are God's offspring." So one thing I can do that will help me to be merry and bright all year long is to purpose, to find, to be aware of the presence of God all around me and in me throughout the year. A second thing I learned from these wise guys is that I need, like them, to say no to the Herods in life. Look at Matthew 2:12. "And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod." So the Magi refused to participate in Herod's political violence. They said no to his insecurities, to his violence, to his hate, to his vengeance. And I think if I'm going to be merry and bright this year, I've got to say no to some attitudes. I've got to say no to hate, to vengeance, to feeling superior, to insecurities that I might have. Now the Magi said no to Herod as well as saying no to Herod's behavior. But I wonder, do we really have to say no to the person who's behaving as well as to the person's behavior? Yeah, I can say no to bad behavior of hate and violence and other hurtful things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to say no to the person who's behaving like that. And so if I set a boundary that I'm not going to live in that atmosphere of hate and prejudice. I'm not going to participate in that conversation where that is the dominant thing. But if people don't respect that boundary, I guess it could be that I do need to draw a boundary around those particular people too. It doesn't mean you're a mean person to draw a boundary. You can be kind and you can still see Christ in people even though you put a boundary up. I'm not talking about building a wall, just talking about making a boundary. And it's a safe thing to do. So I think to keep merry and bright, I need to say no to some attitudes that I might have, and maybe to some attitudes that other people might have as well. Let's go on and look at the rest of verse 12 of Matthew 2. The Magi left for their own country by another way. So I want us to take that phrase, by another way, and close with this thought and focus on another way. The word way is a big deal in the New Testament. The early Christians were in fact called followers of the way. They weren't called Christians. They were people who were called followers of the way because they lived the way of Jesus. They followed the way of Jesus. And the story of Jesus is filled with times that he would call people to follow him. And to follow someone is to do what they do. It's the ultimate game of follow the leader. In Jesus' case, it would be follow the one who serves. That's how he identified himself. But to follow Jesus is to live the way of Jesus, the values and the priorities of Jesus. And that's what Jesus called us to do, to follow in that way. In fact, the very last instructions Jesus gave to his followers, that close-knit group of disciples, is found in Matthew 28, verses 19 through 20. And Jesus says basically this: to go into all of the world, go around the globe, and baptize people, and make followers or make disciples or lead people to become followers of every nation, of every ethnicity, and then to teach them to, I learned the phrase, to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you. But really that word observe means to keep, to protect it, to hold it closely, and to, of course, do it. So Jesus wants followers to do what he says and to do what he did. So what did Jesus do? Well, I think a lot of what Jesus can be summed up in Matthew 7:12, the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says, "In everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you. For this is the law and the prophets." Yeah, that's what Jesus wants us to do. That's what he expects his followers to do. Can you imagine what kind of a year we would have, what kind of a world we would have if everyone actually followed Jesus' command right there? That's the very thing that James Taylor encourages us to do. Back in the 80s, he recorded a song called "Home by Another Way." And there is in that song these words, and it was a song about the Magi. And James Taylor wrote and sang, "Yes, they went home by another way, home by another way. Maybe me and you can be wise guys too and go home by another way." Maybe we can. Have an enjoyable day and a great year. If you want to have a guide towards some contemplation on the teaching today, you'll find that on this link to these Go Deep notes. And you might want to take some time this week to think about these things. Thank you.